I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tell me to someone who will love me. Yeah, wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Find another.
Welcome everyone, welcome everyone, welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. I figure since we just had WrestleMania, and of course for all you longtime wrestling fans, you know that WrestleMania started back in 1985, and it brought us to what we call today pay-per-views, because before WrestleMania you really didn't have any. You had a lot of wrestling companies back then that would have shows that were as good as pay-per-views, but they came on regular TV with no extra money. And then of course WrestleMania started, and then of course after that we got Royal Rumble and SummerSlam and Survivor Series, and for a long time those were the only four that WWF back then had until they started running one a month. And then of course WCW came along and they had one a month, and ECW came along and they had one a month. So I figure since we just had WrestleMania, that this week's Top 10 Countdown will be the best ever Top 10 WWE pay-per-views. So it's not all wrestling, it's just WWE, and this Top 10 Countdown comes courtesy of the Sportster.com. Now, I'm not going to sit here and give you the entire match card for every pay-per-view because that would take forever, but you can simply get on Google and type up the name of each one of these and see the entire match card if you do so choose, which I strongly encourage that, because there's no way that anybody's going to remember off the top of your head every single match on every one of these pay-per-views. But a lot of them, you know the matches, and you have probably seen some of the matches, and you just don't remember when they took place. But I will tell you the main event of each one of these pay-per-views. Number 10 is SummerSlam from 2013, and the main event that night, the greatest wrestler of all time, Randy Orton, beat Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship. Number 9 was WrestleMania 30, when Daniel Bryan beat Batista and Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. Number 8 was the 2001 Royal Rumble, which was main evented that night by the Royal Rumble. And I say that because if you follow Royal Rumble, you know that there has been some years where the main event has been a championship match. But 2001, the main event was the Rumble, and it was won by Stone Cold. Of course, we know that he won more than one Royal Rumble, but number 8 was the 2001 Royal Rumble. Number 7 was ECW One Night Stand, and yes, that was a WWE pay-per-view. That was after Vince had bought out ECW, and of course it shut down for a while, and then Vince brought it back. In 2005, ECW One Night Stand was main evented by the Dudley Boys, beating Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman. And number 6 was the 2002 Survivor Series, which saw Shawn Michaels beat Triple H, Chris Jericho, Kane, Booker T, and RVD for the WWE Championship. Before we crack into the top 5, let's recap numbers 10 through 6. Number 10 was 2013 SummerSlam. Number 9, WrestleMania 30. Number 8, the 2001 Royal Rumble. Number 7, ECW One Night Stand. And number 6, the 2002 Survivor Series. And this is the top 10 best all-time WWE pay-per-views according to the Sportster.com. Number 5 was 2005 Vengeance, which was main evented by Batista and Triple H inside Hell in a Cell, and Batista came out on top that night. Number 4 was the 2002 SummerSlam, where Brock Lesnar beat The Rock. Number 3 was WrestleMania 19, which saw Brock Lesnar beat Kurt Angle. Number 2 was the 2011 Money in the Bank. CM Punk defeated John Cena in the main event. And number 1 should not be a surprise to anybody. This is probably the one WrestleMania that any and every sports fan you know, especially sports entertainment fans or wrestling fans that have seen this WrestleMania, say it's great, top to bottom. Every match that night was great. Every segment that night was great. Everything that happened that night was great. Number 1 was WrestleMania 17, back in the Attitude Era of the WWE. And the main event that night was Stone Cold and The Rock. And Stone Cold won. Of course, all wrestling companies nowadays try to compete with the numbers that WWE put up back then, but it's never going to happen. Wrestling, unfortunately, at least on television, will never be as popular as it was in the late 90s, early 2000s during the Attitude Era. And ever since AEW started, they've been running neck and neck as far as television numbers go on a weekly basis with what Raw is putting up. Usually, whichever one wins, they barely win. They don't run away with it. But neither one of them draw anywhere close to the ratings that WWE drew 20, 25 years ago during the Attitude Era. And AEW, when they started, they said they wanted to be as popular as the Attitude Era was in WWE. That's never going to happen. I wish it would. I would love to see wrestling go back to being popular like it was 20 and 25 years ago. But nowadays, between people getting offended by every single wrestler that has any kind of personality, and most wrestlers just not having any personality, wrestling will just never be as popular as it was back then. But WrestleMania 17 was a phenomenal pay-per-view. If you're new to wrestling and this past WrestleMania was one of the first, if not the first, WrestleMania you've seen, I encourage you to go back and watch WrestleMania 17. Watch the whole show from top to bottom. The entire card was great. But the main event of Stone Cold and The Rock was wrestling the way wrestling should be. Any thoughts on this top 10 countdown? Please feel free to let me know. Again, it was the top 10 all-time best WWE pay-per-views according to the Sportster.com. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What kind of shoes does a lazy person wear? Loafers. And one last thing, speaking of wrestling, don't forget, coming up 2 weeks from this Saturday, April 23rd, 244 Livestock Road, Eastern Ollie, Georgia, former WWE superstar Jackson Riker will be in the house along with all the great talent from SWA. Doors will open at 6. Bell time will be 7 o'clock. And if you do not follow SWA on Facebook, I encourage you to go on Facebook and type up SWA Eastern Ollie, Georgia, and find it, because you will want to see the complete match card before that show gets here. You can also find SWA on YouTube at Southern Wrestling Association. Again, 2 weeks from this Saturday, April the 23rd, 244 Livestock Road, Eastern Ollie, Georgia. Come out and see some great SWA wrestling featuring former WWE superstar Jackson Riker. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.